The Constitution of Sri Lanka in Article 3 says, in the Republic of Sri Lanka, sovereignty is in the people and is inalienable. Sovereignty includes the powers of government, fundamental rights and the franchise. Now, 2024 is set to be an election year where we, the people, will have the power to elect and reject our representatives who are meant to work for us. Now, for all intents and purposes, we appear as a vibrant democracy where the voter is king. However, let's talk about elections. There's been an indefinite postponement of elections, the provincial council elections, the local government elections, and we are set to face a presidential election and a general election. Good evening and welcome. This is Face the Nation. Our topic of discussion tonight is elections, democratic governance, and the upholding of freedoms. Let me very quickly introduce our panel of guests to you. We are joined by Mr. J.M. Vijay Bandara, Attorney at Law. Good evening and welcome. We are also joined by Attorney at Law Migara Dos. Good evening, Migara. My third guest tonight is Manjula Gajanayaka, no stranger to our show, civil society activist and election observer. Good evening, Manjula.
Good evening.
And last but not least, Lihini Fernando, Attorney at Law, also a former municipal councillor representing the SJB. Welcome to the show, Lihini.
Good evening.
To ask all the right questions, I'll be joined by guest journalist Shihar Anis, who also functions as Executive Director of the Centre for Investigative Reporting. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening.
And joining us on Face the Nation for the first time, Theruni Karunaratne, journalist. Welcome, Theruni.
Good evening.
All right, so for the opening remarks of 2 minutes, I'd like to first move to Mr. J.M. Vijay Bandara, Attorney at Law. Your time starts now.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me today, especially during court vacation season. Of course, you start saying democratic governance and freedom. And you mentioned election year. As far as the constitutional provisions and democratic ethical governance system, we should have that freedom throughout, not only at an election. Between 2 elections also we must enjoy that freedom. So what happened after 2019 and 2020 general elections, presidential and parliament elections, I have to repeat so many things in this program. I have to say I repeat, because nothing has changed, though we have been vociferously claiming certain things, nothing happened, so I have to repeat. Sorry to do so. So we people between 2 elections, whether it is a parliamentary election or presidential election, people have the mandate, the authority, that is the true meaning of sovereignty, to commend or condemn the conduct of the governance. So people came together, maybe some may say not properly organized, that's a different topic, but people came forward and entirely rejected the cabinet of ministers, prime minister, the president. And people, in other words, rejected the entire parliament. But 50% of kind of peaceful revolution was successful in Sri Lanka. But due to various other factors, next 50% could not be fulfilled. As a result, we suffer today. And then the rejected parliament got together. Rejected parliament got together and they elected the president. In other words, I'm sorry to say, the Pohottua 134 members adopted UNP single member as their adopted child and made him the president. And thereafter they created this government, nobody accountable to anybody. Today, if we see ex-president Mahinda Rajapaksa had issued a statement saying that though we supported, the head of government is not doing what according to our policy. It was telecast over your news. And can he say so? They are the one who elected the president. So there is no accountability at all, nowhere. Therefore, we lack the freedom, not only forthcoming year, even up to now we lack the freedom. Even women's were water can. You have seen when the Women's and Children Affairs Ministry was taken up in budgets programs, they were water can, humiliated. So, but nobody is accountable. Then Supreme Court has determined many number of occasions, so and so is accountable. Politicians, public servants, and they are getting promotions or active positions. Accountability is not there. So who lacks the freedom? It is the people who has lost the freedom.
All right.
And women fancy is there with all the politicians. That is the fate that we are facing. Hope that people will wake up in the coming year and do their maximum possible to regain the freedom that we have lost.
Thank you very much. Sobering opening remarks. I move my attention to Migara Dos, Attorney at Law.
Thank you. I think the topic today is about elections and the freedoms of the people. Sri Lanka and the people of Sri Lanka have always enthusiastically participated in elections. And now the question is, why the election next year, if it is to happen? Why is it important? It's important for two main reasons. We have an president who is unelected by the people, trying to do mass reforms in the society and the economy. So the question is, where does the mandate come from? Then we have a parliament which was elected in 2020, and by 2022 we had a prime minister resigning, and we had cabinet of ministers resigning on 2 occasions. So that again also is a clear indication that the mandate that the parliament held is certainly no more. Now, that is the reason why elections are important for us, for the people and the country for the next year. But does the government in power allow the people to participate in a free and fair election? That is the question. Now, when we see the online safety bill coming in, where people are constrained from expressing their opinions, and we have the Anti-Terrorism Act also tabled, almost presented in Parliament, where any sort of political or civil action can be categorized as terrorism, there's a clear danger for the freedoms of the people. And also, despite so much opposition and so much resistance and so much criticism by the people, the government had the audacity to appoint as the acting IGP, Deshabandhu Tennakon, despite so much opposition. So this is a clear indication that the people's freedoms are not safe in the year ahead, despite we having to face an election as a country. So I think the election and the freedom are things, as we experienced last year, that the people will have to fight for the next year, also to ensure a free and fair election, and also to ascertain their freedoms throughout the next year. So I think that is a challenge that we as the people of this country would have to take on the next year.
All right, thank you very much. I move my attention now to Manjula Gajanayaka, civil society activist and election observer.
Thanks, Sonali, having me in this discussion today. Regarding the freedom for elections, I mean the most important, as an election observer, most important thing to me actually, don't forget that we shouldn't forget that there are 2 pending elections, okay? Now, I mean most of people are interested to talk on next elections, maybe either presidential election or general elections. But we always actually talk, we shouldn't forget that the provincial council election already disappeared and the local government election is pending. We don't know what will happen in next time. If we are giving the permission to the ruling party or to the president to hold the election as they wish, what is the meaning of sovereignty? What is the meaning of these democratic values? That is the main point what I wanted to highlight here. The other thing is actually there are other several issues that I wanted to highlight here. That regarding the Aragalaya, what has happened to the demands of Aragalaya. If we are going for an election, we shouldn't forget that other part of that Aragalaya, there are some of specific demands made by young people. Then, not only the ruling party, all the opposition party campaigners as well as ruling party politicians actually need to concern on those demands, such as freeze in stolen assets, publicizing declaration of assets and liabilities, as well as getting away from VVIP culture, such things. Then can opposition, either ruling party or opposition party, fulfill their demands before any election? It is one point. Other thing is, it is shame to mention here that we are trying to appoint the 5th member to the election commission. Are we going to have an election without full members of election commission? Is our constitutional council is unable to, are they not willing to appoint the 5th member to the election commission? That is other thing. And other thing, as Migara pointed out correctly, as an election stakeholder, Sri Lanka police has a prime duty during elections. However, that already Supreme Court recommended to police commission to make actions against the current IGP, acting IGP. Then are we going to correct that? Then can we have elections with current acting IGP? It is another point. Other thing is, actually, as an election observer, I should highlight here that the election commission. You may be aware that a few days ago, actually, the Imran Khan behind the bars, actually, he already publicized a video clip, 4-minute video clip using AI, artificial intelligence. Then it is positive side. Again, Shahar, actually, it is the negative side of AI. If during election time, if someone, candidate or either henchman, political party supporter using AI to make into negative impact to the election, what will happen? Our election commission is capable enough to face that challenge? I don't think. Still, my answer is no. Then we have to concern such things.
All right. Thank you very much. Very interesting perspectives indeed. Finally, I move my attention to Attorney at Law Lihini Fernando for your opening remarks.
Thank you for having me here today. Sonali, in your opening remark, you very rightly said that sovereignty is vested in the people and it is inalienable. Actually, if you really look at the current political dynamics, political landscape in Sri Lanka, we actually question whether sovereignty of the people is allowed to be exercised, or what is the right and what is the command the people in this country have. Because rulers, politicians who are governing us, they are not here for life. They are temporary custodians. But how the political landscape in Sri Lanka has broadened it in such a way that, politicians think that they are here for life. And, we've seen a situation where elections have been prolonged. Elections have not been held on its new time. So now next year being an election year, we are supposed to have a presidential and we are supposed to have a general election, but it is questionable whether these will actually happen and whether the people will be allowed to express their sovereign right. And now the other question is, now today Sri Lanka, we are in a severe economic crisis. Now the country needs to make certain economic changes, reforms. Now these reforms are only possible if the mandate of the people is exercised, and people are allowed to exercise and cast their vote and elect a particular party or a government who the people desire, and the people's blessings must always be in there. But here today what we see, even the IMF, the tax increases, tax hikes, the bills that are being passed, and we have a president in this country who's making certain decisions, but is the will of the people being executed, which is a serious concern and is a serious question. So at the end of the day, when we go back to our constitution, the people are the supreme, but people today are not the supreme. We are I would say we are our rights have been curtailed by the politicians. And here we tell Sri Lanka is a democracy. If we are a democracy, then the representation, citizenry participation and citizenry rights must be of paramount importance. And if you talk about citizenry rights, then citizenry rights that are granted by the Constitution, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, all of that must be allowed. But we see repression, we see bills that are being brought into Parliament, Online Safety Security Bill, the ATA, the Broadcasting Regulations Act, then there were security zones. All these regulations that are being brought in, how friendly are those things towards the development of the country? So then Is this the mandate of the people? Is this what the people want? So these are all things that need to be questioned. And today we are talking about elections. Why is this election important? Because people's mandate must be exercised and people must be given that chance to go and say, this is the ruler which we want, this is the party which we want, this is the cabinet which we want. People must be given. People's voice must be heard, but people's voice is not heard. So it is actually a sad situation, I would say, for Sri Lanka right now, because we have a 134 in parliament, elected president who does not have the mandate, the parliament, who, though it is legitimate, they lack legitimacy. So these things, I hope in 2024 that even though we say budgets are allocated, but budgets are not allowed to be exercised. So the president of this country must stop acting like an authoritarian and must understand that Sri Lanka is a democracy and people's democratic rights are allowed to be exercised, and that is not curtailed.
All right. Thank you very much. Very interesting opening remarks. Lots of questions to be answered as well. Before opening the floor for questions from the journalists, I have a question for the four of you. In Sri Lanka, we have seen time and time again how voters have systematically congregated around two main political parties, and there is a very toxic political culture in Sri Lanka. As well as unholy alliances. So I think unholy alliances, political coalitions, collusion, all of this is something that we can expect in 2024. We have necessary safeguards in terms of the laws, regulations, we have regulatory mechanisms. However, we will still be seeing this toxic political culture continuing, people being held to ransom, freedoms being impacted in a negative way. Speak to us about what we can do to arrest this situation. Migara, I'd like your perspectives first.
Yeah, I think you're very correct in your emphasis on the political culture. We've certainly had a very toxic political culture. When you look at the characteristics of the political culture that we have experienced, we've always seen family dynasties probably in every district. Main political parties, other political parties, there's always some sort of a family dynasty where the politicians continue or take the baton forward. And also there's rampant corruption. Corruption from the very top up to the very bottom. So basically this type of characteristics in the political culture were not taken lightly by the people. I mean, people had tolerated this for so many years, but after all, last year what we saw is the resistance from the people coming out loud. So basically that's why the people came forward, and that is the exact political culture they challenged. They were sick of the corruption, they were sick of the family dynasties, they were sick of the same old people carrying all the baton for years and years. And also the other aspect of this political culture is money. Even now, if you spoke about coalitions, we see so many businessmen trying to make their entry to politics. So this is a very dangerous trend, because the freedom of the people, their free choice, can always be manipulated by money. So I think that is a very dangerous trend, and that is a challenge that we'll have to face in the future as well, because the true people's opinions and the true voice of the people can always be distorted when money flies all over. So I think that is a dangerous trend which we would see as an addition to the existing political culture, where businessmen are taking into the political ground now.
Manjula, I'd like to come to you. What do you think about what we can do? What cogent steps can the citizens take? What should we be mindful of going into 2024?
Yeah, basically, you know that as I mentioned in my opening remarks also, that most important thing, questioning the political authority. That though we saw actually that there's a wonderful youth, emerging youths actually in Naragale, but right now what has happened in Colombo centric, yes, there are some youth questioning political authority, and unfortunately actually when you are going to periphery, we can't see such a trend, because young people are not questioning political authority. And other thing is, Sonali, the most pathetic thing is that, you know, still we can use some of legal avenues to question people, question political authority, right? Like RTI, actually you can use, and you can take some of advantages through that. But unfortunately, most of people are not using like that. And other thing is, this is very interesting, Sonali, that you know that we already witnessed that we passed 17, 18 19, 20 and 21st amendments. In those amendments actually we know that both, except 17th and 19th amendments, actually others are not people friendly. Okay, but in those cases, have you seen any research paper or interesting paper issued by any political science department of national universities, or except one or two people representing those political science or social science departments? Actually, as a whole, I can't see. The thing is that intellectuals, academia are not coming forward to aware people and what they know, actually to express their ideas to the people. That's the main thing. They are totally silent. Why they come forward and tell that what's the truth? That is the main thing. No need to criticize anything. Actually, they can explain what has happened. But unfortunately, they are totally silent. Then that is the turning point, and they can start from that. But I can't see such a thing.
Lihini, keep the people hungry, keep the people illiterate, keep the people uneducated, and then you get to do what you want.
Sadly, that is the thing. See, now we are going in for elections, but there is no base, I would say. Now, for example, where are the campaign finance regulations, asset declarations, all these things being made public? What is the base which we go? There is nothing like that in this country. Now, as Migara said, there are businessmen coming in. When it comes to elections, you can spend enormous amounts. There is no such mechanism in Sri Lanka that will govern and that will control these elections in Sri Lanka. So this is what I'm saying. Earlier you said that we are going in for this toxic culture. The toxic culture is also facilitated because of this lack of regulation. And again, it falls on to the parliamentarians to enact them, which they don't want to. Because here in Sri Lanka, the political culture is such that there is an assured voter base which which they don't want to, mix and match, and they don't want to upset it. So because of that reason, all political parties are comfortable to a certain extent, and hence bringing all these regulations like asset declarations and campaign finance regulations, they know that it is going to directly impact their election campaigning. So they themselves, our politicians, our parliamentarians are also, I would say, a cancer to a certain extent in creating this toxic political culture. So how do we go from here? Now we are going in for an election year, and we will see elections, we will see alliances, we will see people in the opposition parties going into the ruling party. It's a mix and match here, but we will not see a change in political culture. Without a change in political culture, this Sri Lanka will not go forward. You don't want. We personally will not want politicians who will spend massive amounts in their election campaigns and then coming back again, to rob the state assets so that, they can fund back the money that they've spent. This is the culture that has been repeating in this country. So, how do we elect the right people? How do we get the right people, the educated people? How do we change this political culture? So these are all factors to discuss. I think the Aragale, when it came, they wanted a complete shift. They wanted the right people. Who are the right people? How do you change this landscape? So these alliances, yes, they will come, but it will be a different form in a different sense. But do we see a total rehaul, a total change, a 360, at least a 180-degree change?
All right. For the first question from our journalist, I'd like to turn to Shihar Anis.
Sure. Thanks, Dilip. Thanks. So I would like to ask Attorney Vijay Bandara on the freedom this year, the next year. We are still in an unprecedented economic crisis. We are trying to come out of it, and there is a call for political change. Though we haven't seen the change in the political culture, the voters really are desperate for a change. In that backdrop, how do you see the freedom? I mean, and also this is a year where we are going to see many taxes, going up, and the 18% VAT. So people are going to complain a lot, and there could be protest as well. So how do you see these kind of measures will play into an election year, as well as the freedom of the people?
Yeah, whatever lapses or loopholes that we may talk about the existing system, those are not a ground to underestimate the people's power. Every and each election, as and when people suffer, As and when people suffer, they uprise. And they defeated government. Maybe they are misled. That's what's happened in the last 75 years. Misinformed. But people power cannot be underestimated. Now, in current era, if we say 2024, and the social media, the internet and global village phenomena and everything, young generation are knowledgeable and they are kind of reactive. Therefore, of course, if my learned friends spoke about many reforms to be done to have a good elections, fair elections, I do agree with that. Even without those things, still people have the power to overthrow a government. I have a trust with that. If an election is held, I think people are ready to give a message to this existing, we call Tattumaru, changing same set of rulers to go away. You know, in any nomination list in Sri Lanka, one political party can submit about 268 names in a list throughout the country, around, close to that. These 225 from any party, they will definitely be there. Though they are accountable, many talks about their accountability, responsibility, lapses, but definitely they will feature in those lists by way of coalition or whatever it is. Previously we talked about floating votes. This time we talked in 2024 floating candidates. That's why they are now trying to invite parties when they are in danger that their name will not appear in any of those nominations. They are not concerned about the benefit of the country, of people, or economic development. All what they need is to ensure their seat at the next election. Firstly, nomination list. That's why they are proposing certain coalition. Having said that, people cannot be underestimated. They will definitely do their task. But any coalition, if anyone proposes, it should be coalition on policies, not about sharing candidatureships. That should be condemned to the hilt. Sharing this number of names should be condemned, because we have gone past that. That is what the lesson that we learned from Aragale. We rejected this system. There are many number of ministers who had been ministers from 1977 up to date in various governments, and said about 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, they have raised their hand for all these amendments. And some ministers, some eminent lawyers, the 20th amendment will resolve every problem. Even this table they have talked. I am a person consistently saying this. That's why I come and say that I have to repeat, because I am saying same thing again, because my problem is not sorted out yet.
Yeah.
Temporarily they say 1 year this constitution is good, next year they okay, we made a mistake, now we are moving back or something like that. But here what we need is, to answer your question, with this system, if election is held, people will sort out their problem. IMF or whatever economic strategies, certainly we have to face. We know that there is a problem. We have to face for that. But to face that, we need legitimate representative of people. That is what we are trying for. So this year we'll fight for that. I'm confident that you start about human rights and inalienable. Even United Nations Human Rights Charter says, if there is suppression unbearable, then people has a legitimate right to disregard suppression and uprise.
All right.
Right?
Teruni?
I'd like to direct this question to Manjula. As you mentioned, RTIs as the declarations, they're really important for the citizens to make a decision on who they should elect as their representatives to whatever state authority it is. And but Sri Lankan politicians and authorities are quite notorious for not being willing to release such information to the public. And we've also had reports from maybe organizations like Verity Research that the remarks of the public, they're very unsatisfactory, or rather unsatisfactory, extremely unsatisfactory when it comes to the proactive disclosure of information. Now, I believe this is a violation of the people's freedom of information. So how do we curb this unfortunate situation?
Yeah, it is true actually that you know that if you can Google the name of Rahul Gandhi or Narendra Modi, actually you will get the all details of their assets in 1 second. Okay, that is the culture of India. We shouldn't forget that the powers vested with the Election Commission actually, and also the Supreme Court, they have given a wonderful decisions related to election, upgrade the election culture of that country. Not only that, actually, let me to compare that with the Indian situation actually, that before the nomination actually, with the nomination paper, if you have any crime record related to the candidates actually, you have to submit to the Election Commission. Then actually they are going to publish it, then it is in the public domain, then you can, anyone can refer that. But unfortunately, you know that as you correctly mentioned that according to that report, as well as the Transparency International also did a wonderful job asking them to open and publish their asset declaration. Unfortunately, turned up only 12 politicians in this country to open their asset declarations. That is the situation. But let me to say this thing, there's a silver line also because of due to through the new anti-corruption bill actually, there's a provision to amalgamate all the asset and declaration into one pack, as well as actually there's some green light to promote this asset declaration culture. But unfortunately, I don't think that still they have not appointed members to the commission. And also, you know, the current commissions actually, it is always questionable the independence of those commissions. That's the problem. But you know that since we all are talking on next year election, let's forget for a moment that those pending elections, provincial council, both provincial council and local council elections, then we can talk on election manifesto. If there's a election, either national election, either presidential or parliamentary election, there should be a strong appeal coming from people regarding the election manifestos. Okay, there should be a strong appeal from people to publish their asset and declaration if you are genuine candidate, as well as actually as civil society organizations. We are seeking public opinion as well as public assistance to do that. Even MIGAR and others also can help us actually legalize election manifestos. We know it is a very difficult task. At least on selected few points, few lines we can take, and actually we can invite political parties to do that. I mean, if we can create a culture to legalize political manifestos, though it is difficult, if we can do a try, then I mean people can take the service of that.
Lehin, as a politician, how concerned are you when the online safety bill and the broadcast regulatory bill are passed in the parliament?
Actually, it is worrying, I would say, because as I said earlier, our constitution guarantees people's freedom of expression. So people's freedom of expression is an inalienable right that we have. So online security bills, the government, when they bring in, it should not hinder the people's right to express and the people's free thinking, people's thought process. But what we see the government is trying to do is that they are trying to suppress, because people here, through the online mechanisms, people have the option of commenting, commenting on politicians, their political actions, political strategies, and it can also impact the next election. So the government today wants to control, because they think controlling the people is the way to go, whereas they don't understand that people are criticizing the government because it is a fault of the government, versus, you know, the accusation are directed at the people. So these kind of regulations are being brought not with the purest intention of, you know, trying to streamline the online social medias or the negativities that are around it, but purely because the government cannot tolerate I would say dissenting views, dissenting opinions, so which is again a threat on a democracy. Now we see in other countries how when it comes to during election time, how people are very vocal when it comes to their opinions. So not in any sense should these regulations be brought in to control the people's freedom of expression. Now, another worrying aspect is this Media Broadcasting Regulations Act and the bill that is being brought now. Institutions like your organization have always contributed towards reporting the truth to the people. So just because it is not in favor of the government bringing regulations and holding media institutions at gunpoint is not the way to go. I mean, the previous Media Broadcasting Regulation Act, it went to the extent of even cancelling your license if the wrong things are being reported. And also there were commissions who were appointed, who were suggested, who can take decisions on behalf of who will take decisions on behalf of these media institutions. And so these kind of things are detrimental. So again we go back to the government and think, what is the intention of bringing this legislation? Is it to control, is it towards the betterment of the people, or is it because the government can't tolerate dissenting opinions? So it is in an election time, it is worrying if these bills are being passed right before an election, then people will also worry in expressing their opinion. Then again it is going to affect the democracy in this country, and we will see a situation where an election where people will think twice before they express, and also it is going to impact the politicians and also people campaigning, because if when you campaign, you have to talk the truth, you have to talk the right thing as well as the wrong thing, you have to educate the people, and you will think twice before expressing your opinion, because if I do this tomorrow, will I be taken at ransom? Will I get a call to CID? Will I be held at gunpoint? I mean, we saw ATA, Anti-Terrorism Act, where the definition is so broad that when you express opinions, you are even considered to be the definition of a terrorist was so broad that expressing views can also be considered to be a terrorizing act. So these are really worrying. So we need to consider, we need to question the leaders of this country. What is the objective in bringing this legislation?
Thank you very much.
On the same question, Manjula, now the government's argument for this bill is people basically come up with fake news and false information to discredit the government's effort in the support to the public. As an election monitor, how do you see these bills during an election year?
With the time to permit, let me to tell one thing. The most important thing in this situation, actually, most of issues are arising with the actions taken by executive president. Okay. Now, let's say broadcasting bill as well as online safety bill. Then they have suggested to appoint a commission as well as committees. Then who is going to appoint these commissions? The commission members and as well as that committee members. Almost all the members can be appointed. I know there's a provision that under the permission, under the approval of Constitutional Council, he can appoint. But you know that there's no local government election, provincial council election, as well as governors are under the purview of executive president. Then he's just like an almighty person right now, no? Then the most problem can be created through executive presidency, because he can control everything. As an election observer, my problem is, Shahar, two things. That if we are going for an election, the main thing is actually that someone actually, Mr. Vijay Bandara actually was talking about that caretaker government's situation also. In Sri Lankan situation, there will be a cabinet. Okay, cabinet is operating during the election time period. Then they can propose many mega development projects as well as can give broken promises also. Then what will happen? Actually, in this situation, that such kind of toxic bills, acts can be used for the gain of political win, that election win. That's the main situation.
Right. Thank you very much. Migara and Mr. Vijay Bandara, I'd like to come to you both. Now, in countries like Colombia, violence has become a defining thread that has significantly influenced the country's identity. If we take pre-election Sri Lanka, in countless years, countless numbers of times, we've seen thuggery, we've seen the role of money and muscle politics and fear-mongering. How dangerous is this as a trend? Do you think we need to brace ourselves in terms of facing things like election violence? What do we need to do to now brace ourselves, be prepared?
I think you're very correct about that now. This elections always comes with a culture of violence and extortion and thuggery. So it's something we've experienced in the past, and certainly we might have to expect that as well in the future. But then again, there are institutional mechanisms in a country where they are supposed to safeguard the people from this kind of election violence and other forms of violence. But the question is right now in Sri Lanka, as I brought this issue previously also, we have an acting IGP. A week after, not even a week after his appointment, there was a Supreme Court judgment where he has participated in an act of torturing an accused in police custody. So these are the kind of people that we have vested the power of law enforcement in. And also, we have a public security minister who has the audacity to say that we will annihilate those who are involved in the drug trade.
Just to add, when he was the range DIG of the Western Province, even lady journalist was brutally attacked. And that cases before Human Rights Commission pending, you all know, against the same person. So none of those things were considered, and he has been appointed as the... Okay, go ahead.
And also, I think the public security minister has the audacity to say that he will annihilate all those who are involved in the drug trade. To annihilate. So where is the law and order? And this is the public security minister saying this. And also now there are publicity stunts where they go on and raid houses. So if you are supposed to take on the drug trade, you don't go and arrest and torture drug users. They should be rehabilitated. If you want to arrest and enforce the law, go to the drug lords. Have you ever seen these people going to mansions? No. They're only going to the normal, ordinary people who have become victims of the drug trade. So this is the kind of impunity and violent, institutionalized violent culture that we are experiencing right now in the country. So the future in an election era will be extremely dark, and we will definitely have to brace ourselves.
Mr. Vijay, I'd like your perspectives as well.
He is acting, the word acting is some other meaning as well. Right? He is acting right now. I mean, what is the meaning of, we know as lawyers, the criminal investigation, we don't act. We do investigation. We do it secret way. We just give, having media, publicity, and we are coming to your place and we do this thing. That's nonsense. Right? Having so much of allegations against his own name. He is doing this thing. I mean, nothing happened, just a piece of show. And he is struggling, trying his level best to ensure that he get the permanent this thing. And this is the pathetic situation in this country. Accountability is lacking. Now people voicing what is the accountability of this illicit the medicine issue. Minister, should he be taken into custody and questioned? That's one of the issues. There are many others. Gas cylinders were exploded, and there was certain news. Nothing happened. The human experiments are taken place everywhere. But the purpose of political gain, this exercise, so there is a good name, what is the name? Siri, this acting, this drugs, this name, they have given name, Sadapahara or something, even this name, I can't exact name. So that also be just a show. This, what is the end result will be very serious. And they say they have seized some ganja or something. You know, what is the major problem about this drugs, heroin? That is a major problem. From where those things come, it is known. If you listen to parliament debate, there are certain names are mentioned. Maybe right or wrong, but at least has he done any investigation into the correctness of those things? Nothing. And he had been there in the police for so much of time. When his position is on balance, he is doing this type of thing. I mean, is it the duty of the public officers that we expect from in a democratic society? No, surely no.
Not just that, the Easter Commission, the Easter Commission found that there was recommendation to the Attorney General that action should be taken against him. I mean, that was one of the main concerns of the Catholic Church, Cardinal saying why he should not be given this particular acting IGP role. So now all these things are being told and people have been voicing. So, but the executive turns a complete blind eye towards this. So where is rule of law? Where is democracy?
And what is the role of acting? Why? What is the purpose of acting? Aren't there any other officers? I mean, the totally previous one is retired and gone, right? Then you have to appoint a person. Why acting?
Yeah.
Why
Sonali,
acting?
can I add one point? Because since you made a valid point regarding the election violence during pre-election time period, actually, the one of major problem is actually we don't have a proper EDR system, mean election dispute resolution system. That's the main one aspect actually. If I give in an example for you actually, that in 2014 there was a case against the ruling party provincial council minister actually at that time. That particular member actually, that provincial council minister actually got house arrested 2 election officials in his Mother political party office in the town, okay? Then filing the case actually, Election Commission lodged a complaint. I mean, they received a complaint on that. They themselves lodged a complaint regarding that in 2014, okay? That file actually got freeze 2 years in police department till 2016. After that, Attorney General advised them to proceed in 2018. Now, still going on, that case is going on, now almost 9 years. Then, that's why Dinesh Gunawardena committee, special parliamentary committee suggested, I mean that most of people suggested to that particular parliamentary committee to do a separate election tribunal attached to the election commission. Okay, the most important thing is all the B report should submit to by police department, not from the election commission. Then there are considerable delays in Sri Lanka. Even there were 53 cases with the police department right now related to last parliamentary election. If you can, I mean, there are attorneys actually, if one of you can reveal, I mean, check all those files, I am pretty sure that as an election observer, maybe we can unseat 9 or 10 members of parliament. That's the situation. Then we don't have a strong EDR system in Sri Lanka.
Wow, okay, thank you.
As Sonali said previously, Sri Lanka has had a notorious history of having a toxic political culture where plenty of election violence has been going on in the run-up to the election. But the last time we had an election was before the Aragale. And during the Aragale, we had hundreds and thousands of people saying that no matter what party comes into power, what matters is that the people's well-being is prioritized. So do you think that by next year, the people who united for the Aragale, who had previously voted for opposing political parties and alliances, do you think that they would forget everything that happened and then once again just go with the flow of joining political agendas and maybe fall into the same trend once again? What do you think?
It has remarkably reduced, I think. The political toxic has been gradually diluted. Now people start to think differently. I am confident, not 100%, but there's a vast difference if we go to rural areas, young generation. You see, 18 to 25 years, if you take that generation, normally if you pass O-levels or A-levels and no hope for university, still you could find a job previously. Now, that opportunity is no more there for them. Those who graduated, they cannot find any jobs in Sri Lanka. So most are trying to migrate. You see, yesterday see that some IT experts, 53 were taken hostage by terrorist groups. So that is the fate of young generation. Therefore, with all those informations, it goes to the root of all over the country. So all are awakened. Therefore, that generation is ready and they are capable enough to educate the adult generation. Therefore, what matters is have the election. If the election, definitely this time, they will show a different results for sure. different results in the sense that these two parties' powers, one after the other, it was changed. There will be a totally different parliament. At least, can you ever expect any person who supported Aragalaya to see that this 134, those people back in parliament? Was that their expectation? Surely no.
So I'd like to extract something that you said from that the youth are capable of changing the result of the next election. I'd like to direct the question to Lihini as a representative of a political party. What are the opportunities that a political party would give to the youth to take over and enter politics in the country and maybe change how, since the country is asking for system change, what kind of an opportunity do political parties give to the youth?
So, since I represent the SJB, I want to say this: SJB as a party is trying to drive a different political culture in this country. We are very clear on the fact that, you know, we will not come into alliances with racist people and people who have allegations relating to corruption. That is also one of the reasons why Mr. Sajid Premadasa, when he was called to take over, didn't take over, because he said, you know, that he does not want to, you know, come into certain agreements with people who are responsible for this economic crisis. So, answering your question, SJB as a party is open, quite open to giving opportunities to youth in Sri Lanka who is interested in coming to politics. So we have the SJB Youth Wing, the YPO Young Professionals Organization, different organizations within the party that has given opportunity for youth to come in, even to contribute at policy level. So the party has recognized the fact that youth is the future, and there is a massive floating voter base also, and, you know, are listening to their opinions, listening to their viewpoints is considered of paramount importance. And apart from that, I want to tell the youth in this country, our lives are political, and we are no longer, can we say we are anti-politics, we don't want to talk to politics. Our lives in this country are political. Hence, it is important that the youth in this country actively take part, engage in political discussion. And we saw that same thing happening in the Aragalaya, youth coming forward and expressing their viewpoints. And when it comes to an election, they need to come forward and contribute towards being in places where the decisions in this country are being taken. If the political culture in this country is to change, we need to see a different representation. Now the issue here is we see the same old people, the same old political culture in this country getting repeated. And I want to say this, political parties are also responsible to this, both parties, major parties, that to a certain extent in maintaining their voter base. They want to maintain their voter base, the political culture. Hence, they are also somewhat averse in certain instances in changing, in going for a complete change. But if more and more youth are coming into political parties and challenging the status quo, yes, we can change. But what we see is everybody today being a keyboard warrior, or they are just behind their laptops, just criticizing on social media, commenting. But active participation is what is needed. At least if at the next local council election, if we can see many youth representation coming forward, maybe we will be able to see a considerable change. Maybe not the next parliament, at least by 2030. We will see a different political culture. It is no longer Sri Lanka does not need this political culture of, you know, selling your vote for a arak bottle or a rice packet. That is the culture which we've seen, and the politicians think, you know, when it comes to an election, we can throw money and we can get our votes. Now, we saw that in the south, one particular politician spending about 250 million in his election campaign, and how, you know, this is also voter buying to a certain extent, how he managed to come from that Matara district. So, I mean, where is that money? Where did he get that money? Nobody is questioning, right? So now that political culture can only change if you have a different set of people running. And parties also are not going to give that opportunity to the youth overnight. So people need to come and join these youth organizations and fight for their place.
Thank you very much. Migara, I'd like to take a leaf out of the politician's playbook. Divisive politics, dividing people on ethno-religious lines, ethno-linguistic lines. This is a very familiar leaf out of the divisive, racist, sexist, misogynistic politicians' playbook. I worry that they're not done playing this card, Migara. Although people now are more critical thinking, more critical minded, more aware, more informed. there's this fear that lurks.
I think divide and rule has always been part of our political history from 1956 into the 70s and even the 2019 election. So initially they tried to divide the Sinhalese and the Tamils, then the Sinhalese and the Muslims and the Christians. So this would continue. This is a very unfortunate feature that is embedded in our political system. But as you said, now a lot of things were spoken about the Aragalaya. I would like to answer your question from this perspective. A lot of things were spoken about the Aragalaya, but actually Aragalaya was people coming out for the anger they experienced because of the economic crisis. Right? So that was the main reason why people came out. But in their resistance, in their opposition also, there was a critique on the political culture. They criticized the luxurious lifestyles of politicians, they criticized the corruption, they criticized nepotism. So there was a deep political message also coming out of the Aragalaya. And another thing also was that they disregarded these divisions amongst the people. So when you see youths coming together and sharing an iftar or celebrating a religious or rather Easter or Good Friday, so that is actually a good quality that we see in this youth generation. So initially they came out because of their frustration and anger, but then again there was room for improvement where there was a more deep political message coming out of the article. I think the actual challenge is not in these youths. The actual challenge is for the political parties. They have to nurture these qualities of these people, identify them and address them for a better political culture in this country. I think so that is the actual challenge that emerging political parties and the political parties running for elections would have to take on.
Manjula, now we always blame politicians and political parties when it comes to elections and the policies. But do you think people have done their duty and the responsibility? Because we don't see people electing the proper representative from the parties, and then we always blame politicians and political parties. So what's your advice to the public and the voters this time around, how they should elect the people?
Yeah, because actually we have voters, not citizens. That is the main thing. The situation is here actually that I always emphasize this factor. That is actually we need to aware people more and more on political literacy, not the election literacy. Okay, then electoral literacy mean actually you know how to mark your ballot paper. Then even across the country actually we can see people are doing, I mean considering the comparing the other elections also, we do have, we have conducted 74 elections after 1931. Okay, we do have a very good record in election culture in Sri Lanka. And also actually marking ballot papers and other stuff, even the average of rejected votes in presidential election actually may be nearly 2 points only. That's a good average, and we are maintaining a good election culture. But unfortunately, the problem is actually you know how to mark the ballot paper, but you don't know how to select your candidate, proper candidate. Due to that, actually, since I am representing March 12 movement, once actually we introduced two things. One thing is scorecard. Actually, we have given 8 criteria that mean actually whether he's environment friendly, as well as not a drug dealer, as well as whether he's close to the community, as well as constituencies like that. But unfortunately, in that time also actually people have selected the same people. Unfortunately, that do upside down the situation in a positive way. What we can do, I strongly believe it is the duty of religious leaders, academia, civil society leaders and activists. But unfortunately, the one part, religious leaders, sorry to say this, are you thinking that religious leaders are guiding people properly? The answer is not, because they have a main duty to do politics, not their religious duties. We have hundreds and thousands of temples, churches, kovils. Then if they can take the leading role to aware people what is the good, what is the bad, they can change the country. But unfortunately, they are not taking the leadership. That's the main thing.
So now that election literacy was mentioned, election literacy is about the voter casting the vote, them knowing about the procedure and all. But they have to cast the vote by selecting a name that is presented by the political party initially. So I'd like to direct this question to Lihini. How do you pick new candidates to give their names, submit their names to the election? What kind of criteria should they fulfill?
So the parties must, their nominations list must be open to inviting new people to come in. So what happens is you have the existing same old people, first they are given preferences and the rest of the people are, you know, put right at the bottom. No, that is not that. There needs to be, I'm a firm advocate of this women's quota, 25% quota, because 2018, because of the quota that was brought in, only women representation increased, and the same way the quota, I believe, must be extended to parliament as well as provincial council. And quota is not something that should be there forever, but at least to increase women representation, 25% quota must be brought in, and also the youth quota also must be brought in. And then there must be certain guidelines. Obviously there are guidelines saying, you know, you can't give your nominations to criminals, what is your history, are you a convict, so there are certain, and what is your status, you need to get all these reports. So I mean, there are guidelines, but political parties, do they actually consider? But they want to put, in Sinhala we say, and they look at their the pot of wealth that they bring in, how much money can that they can spend on an election. So those are the criteria. How many buses can you bring in for election campaigns? So things like that. But you know, are you giving your nominations to the right people, the ethical people, the educated people? So, you know, for this present situation in this country, all of these factors have contributed over the years. Who have we given nominations to? If we have given nominations to the right people, people will elect. But people have to select from the people that come forward. So this is an issue. I mean, sorry to say, but major parties have contributed to this problem. And, you know, going forward in the next election, people must question, you know, if you have a bad track record, if you have contributed towards this economic crisis, if you have corruption allegations, if you have pending court cases, being acquitted is a different story. But there were certain allegations, charge sheets that were put on your behalf. I mean, we know exactly. Right, so then people must question, do we want these people back again? Just because they have been looking after my family, coming for my wedding, all of this, those are not criteria for them to be a politician. And who is a politician in this country? What is the role of a politician? A politician is a person who is responsible towards the legislature, is responsible towards drafting laws in this country. But what do our politicians do? I mean, you look at recently the parliament was called on a Sunday. They didn't have the quorum. I mean, what are these people doing? I mean, you see the amount of money that is spent on the budget, the debates. Are they contributing effectively and actively? So who is our future in this country? The people, the 22 million's future are rested on these 225 people. And are these people the right people? Even for the people to select the right people, the parties must give nominations to the right people. Are the parties doing that?
Right. Manjula, on that same note, the appointing of clean candidates, you were instrumental in the March 12th declaration. Pirisudu Deshapalanathnyenga appoint karanna kiyala.
Yeah.
Speak to us about this lack of intra-party democracy. Within political parties, there is so much drama, so much toxicity. Speak to us about how dangerous that is.
Yeah, actually, the main thing is actually if you can compare the presidential race in both countries, US and Sri Lanka, we can understand it is easily. You know, contesting for the presidential election is not the problem with US. Actually, taking the candidacy to contest to the presidential council is the deadly contest in US elections, you know, within the political party. When it comes to Sri Lanka, if there's election in presidential election, everyone is nominating their candidate. Is there any role to play for people? Actually, there should be a bottom-up theory, you know. I mean, people should be able to elect their political party leaders, but unfortunately, we can't see. And another prime example is when you are going to register a new political party to the Election Commission, they have already issued a gazette. There's a particular provision that there should be a one-fourth quota for women in highest position in political parties. There should be. But unfortunately, yes, political parties doing things, but I mean they are doing like that. I mean not in the highest position, I mean executive level, but they are appointing district level, divisional level women in executive positions and giving that list to the election commission. That is so kind. That is so cunning. Then when it comes to intra-party politics, it is the main thing someone actually already mentioned, that is the nepotism and other stuff, and also kleptocracy. It is related to the political party, most of political party leaders. That's the thing. The most important thing, Sonali, when it comes to election manifestos and other stuff, actually, at least some of parliamentarians are attached to political parties, not aware on what are their policies and what they have to include into the election manifesto. It is a duty of inner party, inner circle. That is the main thing. Then why we can't create a clean political culture? Because of some of inner circles are operating closer to political party leaders. That is the main thing.
Yeah, I would like to direct this question to Attorney Vijay Bandara, and then you three also can respond. Now, this is the first election we are going with this Campaign Finance Act passed in the Parliament. How do you see a change in the election, in the upcoming election, and do you see people have much education on this law, new law, to ask questions? Now, Manjula said that people must ask questions. People should question their leaders. Do you see that happening in the next election?
Next year, I don't think anything such will happen if the election is declared, because as now he was telling, one member is to be appointed to complete the number of members to the election commission as well. But elections are due according to the constitution, so election has to be held. Therefore, I don't think any of these things will be addressed. But I always appreciate that the election monitors like this gentleman, and they are vociferous against that. I mean, I wish them all to do better for the country. But once the election is declared, none of these things will happen. People fight for the election, starting normal way of their election campaigning. But this year election will be, people will really think of a system change. System change in the sense, not the change of heads or change of this party to that party. It is the party who can change the agricultural economy in this country. It is the party who can deal with IMF respecting our sovereignty. It is the party who can have international policy safeguarding Sri Lankan integrity. So far, all those who have governed this country has utterly failed in those areas. That is why now various forums we sometimes blame to China, sometimes blame to India, sometimes blame to USA. That is mainly because of the past foreign policies adopted by respective governments. Therefore, we know that we have to deal with IMF as well. We have to deal with all the international relationships as well. But we need the entire system change, without which any of these laws, just introducing by piecemeal basis, will not work. We have to have an exemplary governance system set up by the supreme law, the constitution itself. That is what is needed. After the next election, presidential or parliament, within 2 years, we have to set up that new system. Of course, we cannot do it within 1 month or 2 months. We have to do it, and we have to get ready. Then manifesto, we talk about manifesto. Next year's election manifesto will be to introduce new change setup. Explain that setup to the people in the run up to the election. and get a mandate and pass that system. So that is what is people expecting from the Aragale up to date. That is the change that we need. Otherwise, we can talk. To look at this now, election changes, there are many number of commission and various proposals. Now this present incumbent Prime Minister himself was the head of those committees. Now this government has appointed another committee. Utter waste of time. How many times those have been talking? The talking will not work. So we have to introduce, I have to say that those who govern as ministers or members of parliament in the government parties have failed. They cannot assure anything good for the future. They have proven that they have failed. Therefore, there should be a new set of members of parliament and a new president with a new system. As you say that within a political party there is no democracy. Yes, I do agree. But if there is a party which is working not on the basis of family leadership, right, or caste leadership, leaders and the teamwork is what matters. So I am representing NPP. We do have that system. I am not representing JVP directly, but JVP is the origin of NPP. You remember you were talking about if you introduce good people, will people vote? You remember 1999 election, JVP in a coalition with some other party introduced their own candidate. They got 39 people elected.
It was 2000.
39 people elected.
2004.
Yeah.
It was in 2004.
That resulted introducing 17th Amendment as well. Thereafter, they were not permitted to run with the main party who were in the government. So they had to withdraw from government. But that is the competence that we are having. If we introduce clean characters, people are ready.
So what you say is this election campaign finance bill is not going to be
within next year. I don't think we have enough time to implement those things.
Yeah, I mean, while giving due respect to what Mr. Vijay Bandara said, actually, let me to think and say the positive side of campaign finance law. Actually, you know that I mean, if there's an election, it can be a real testing time for campaign finance bill. I mean, there are two aspects in elections in Sri Lanka. There are two revolutionary steps. That mean actually, for youth, 18 plus vote is there now. Actually, when you come into age of 18, actually now you can register 3 times in a year. Okay. Due to that, actually, when we are talking in the next election, there will be 150,000 more young people as fresh voters will be participated in the elections. Other thing is campaign finance. It is true, Shahar, you know that you are more aware on that actually, considering others, I mean, other journalists, you know that, I mean, yes, lack of awareness is there, and also that election commission duty is aware people more and more. But in other things, actually, we can't see only the dark side of this campaign finance law. You know, actually, we were not silent in the history of this. I mean, we were backing for this law. If you can remember, actually, 2018, after the local government election, we filed a case before the Monragala Provincial Court. Okay, we got after 40 years election history. When Pafferel lodged that complaint and filed the case, actually, we were able to unseat the one of local government member. Okay, if people are aware and activists are aware, taking actions, I mean, we can take the good advantage from this law, as well as actually, I mean, there will be a ceiling. Yeah, women politicians like Lihini, I mean, the political parties who promoting clean political culture like NPP, JVP, actually they can take a lot of advantage through this law. I mean, rather looking at only the dark side of that law, I mean, there are some green lights and positive sides of that law.
So I'd like to ask one final question. How do we strike a balance between protecting the principles of freedom during an election and also the potential misuse or manipulation of freedom and just ensure a democratic, fair election? Next year, I'd like to pose the question to anyone who is willing to answer, actually.
Balance, because there should be, because freedom of expression means you have to tolerate the comment as well as dissent. And then in the election campaign, it's always a debatable topics are being talked in public and alternatives are being advocated. Therefore, forum should be free from any encumbrances or any limitation. If, as we initially discussed, is online protection bill or something comes in and one party decides which is truth, which is wrong, will be detrimental. In the absence of such laws, of course, forum should be open and people are entitled in a democratic election to come up with alternative proposals and suggestions and debates. Therefore, you cannot say that which one is dark truth, black truth, or black and white truth or wrong. So it is, and then while debating, dissemination of information is the people or the civil society together, which way is better for the country. Therefore, there is always balance is there, unless it is being controlled by a bad law like online protection law or something. Otherwise, balance is always there.
Yeah, and constitutional councils also should be strong. Not as they are not only appointing agents. Actually, they should play their role as an advisory level, as well as our independent commission should be independent in actions.
All right. Before wrapping up, it's past 11 p.m. Before wrapping up, I'd just like to set the stage. We spoke about a lot of issues, a lot of pressing concerns in Sri Lanka. But something that we also need to acknowledge is that the state is not the enemy. So we can't conceptually demonize the concept of the government. People have to work in in collaboration with the government. We need to rely on the government, right? The state. Given this, in your closing remarks, I'd like all of you to focus on the importance of civic action in creating widespread awareness of rights, freedoms, and also corresponding responsibilities as citizens. And let's end the conversation on a positive note. There are so many issues, yes, but we need to stay hopeful so that we can live to see another day. So I'd like to start with perhaps Mr. Vijay Bandara. What more needs to be done and what can we look forward to moving towards an election year?
I'm very much positive if next year is going to be an election year. That's what I expect. I'm very much positive. Nothing bad I'm expecting. All will be good. And also we talk about many election corruption incidents, maybe from Wayamba to that thing and this, but we all can agree, I believe, every election we got the expected results. I mean, nobody surprised about election results. Do you surprise the election results of 2019 or 2020 or 2015 or 2010, 2005? No. There may be incidents, but overall, maybe there were not enough laws, as many lacunas, lapses, but results was what was expected by the people. This time also there is expectation of the results that will be achieved without any doubt whatsoever. Whether this IGP is properly appointed, yes, I am also against election commission, whether it is biased or unbiased. I have a doubt, I have concern. As you say, to be positive of the governance system, yes, we can be positive, but we are not trusting. We will be always vigilant about the conduct of the government, about their impartiality. But more important fact is, if people's sovereignty is respected, elections are held, people allowed to vote. Of course, many number of media campaign, social media campaign, misinformation, so many things we can predict. But with all these things, people will pick the correct path. So only concern for me, fear is that some or other, to various reasons, if this election are also to be postponed, that is a deadly dangerous thing.
All right.
You invited me to be positive, so I'm not commenting on that. I say this is the election year, we'll stay positive.
Okay, fantastic. Migara.
One positive note would be election period is where the political literacy of the people is increased. So where people debate political issues and they talk about politics. Everywhere we go, people talk about politics. So I think with that context, political parties have a responsibility to explain their manifestos to the people, to discuss their issues. There are pressing issues for the people. There's the economic issue, there are social issues and the ethnic issues as well. So these issues need to be properly addressed in manifestos. Of course, we remember in the past, former president saying that they don't even remember who wrote their manifesto. So that kind of a culture needs to change. Political parties have a responsibility to educate the people and raise awareness about their policies. And the people also need to question the political parties and take them head on regarding the issues that actually matter. So I think movements like Mr. Manjulas and other civil groups and of course youth, political parties now have youth factions and youth groups discussing issues. So I think that culture needs to take on these political parties and question them on where they stand. I think that would be a positive note for tomorrow and a better political culture for the future.
Super. Manjula?
Yeah, two things actually. For the voters, actually, what I can say for the entire citizens, actually, maximum use of existing laws. Actually, there are some tools, then you can easily use and question people, question political authority. Use that. The second thing is, please defeat any person, candidate or political party leaders who is trying to postpone elections. That is my advice and request.
All right. Short and sweet.
Already tried.
Very meaningful.
So yeah, as you said, let's be positive. I think we as a country must understand Sri Lanka, how we can be a great nation. This is a great nation, it's an island nation that has so much of resources, but we have not even identified the potential of this nation. And you know, we've been in a culture, firefighting political culture, talking political rhetorics, racism, corruption. You know, we have got ourselves entangled in this whole situation, and we as a nation are suffering for our wrong decisions. I think it is time that the people of this country understand what a great nation we are and how we can make that change and identify who the leaders that can bring this change. We are no longer in a situation of believing political rhetorics or political stories. We need people who can bring action, who can bring that difference to the table. And we were talking about political manifestos. Now we see political parties' manifestos different sense. Some parties talking about liberal, some parties talking about communism, some parties talking about neoliberalism. But as a nation, what we are, what can take us, what can take Sri Lanka to be that great nation? What is our foreign policy? What is our economic policy? What should be education and health policy? At least there needs to be some basis for this country. We don't even have that. It can't drastically change from party to party. So these are things that people of this country need to talk about, and during election time, these are the things that we need to debate on, and we need to select a party that can drive this change for the long haul. It's no longer trying and testing and changing from one government to the other. We need a party that can take the country forward with correct economic policies that will drive Sri Lanka to be that great nation. So I hope that people in this country will have the wisdom to select that particular political party going forward, and also that hopefully it will be an election year and the people of this country are being given the right to exercise their franchise.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being a part of this roundtable discussion to discuss elections, democratic governance and the upholding of freedoms. We really do appreciate your presence here at 11:09 p.m. on a weekday. Thank you so much for being hopeful of better days for Sri Lanka. Thank you very much to Attorney at Law J.M. Vijay Bandara, Attorney at Law Migara Dos, civil society activist Manjula Gajanayaka and Attorney at Law Lihini Fernando. Thank you so much for being a part of this show. Also guest journalist Shrihar Aniz and journalist Theruni Karuna Ratna. Our topic of discussion was elections, democratic governance, upholding freedoms and the responsibility of the citizen. The fact that sovereignty vests in you and I. Remember, the personal is political. Thanks for watching. Good night.